Cho was born in Kangso-gun, South Pyongan Province, in present-day North Korea on February 1, 1883. He was raised and educated in a traditional Confucian style, but later converted to Protestantism and became an elder. From June 1908 to 1913, Cho moved to Japan to study law in Tokyo at Meiji University. It was during his stay in Tokyo that he came into contact with Gandhi's ideas of non-violence and self-sufficiency. Cho also admired the teachings of Jesus Christ and Leo Tolstoy, later using these ideas of non-violent opposition to resist Japanese rule. After Japan's annexation of Korea in 1910, Cho became increasingly involved with his Korea's independence movement. His organization and participation in the March 1st movement in 1919 led to him being arrested. He is also famous for publicly rejecting the Japanese imperial government's policy of pressuring Koreans to legally change their surnames to Japanese ones. In 1922, Cho established the Korean Products Promotion Society with the objective of achieving economic self-sufficiency and that Koreans could obtain home-produced products. He intended the society to be a national movement supported by all religious organizations and social groups. Due to the Korean Products Promotion Society, his strong non-violent resistance, and leading by example rather than political or social authority, Cho became widely respected, and earned himself the title, Gandhi of Korea. Despite this reputation, his encouragement of Korean students enlisting in the Imperial Japanese military elicited mixed feelings from other nationalists. In August 1945, with Japanese surrender on the horizon, Cho was approached by the Japanese governor of Pyongyang, and asked to organize a committee to assume control and maintain stability in the power vacuum that would follow. He agreed to cooperate, and on August 17, 1945, Cho Man-Sik formed the Provisional People's Committee for the 5 provinces. He then joined the cabinet of the People's Republic of Korea, making the Provisional People's Committee for the 5 provinces the party's northern branch. The committee functioned to standardize the number of members, duties, and electoral processes for the formation of people's committees at the provincial, city, country, township, and village levels. Cho affiliated this committee to the Committee for the Preparation of Korean Independence, or the CPKI. The Provisional People's Committee for the 5 provinces was generally composed of right-wing nationalists opposed to communism. The Soviet civil administration arrived in Pyongyang following the Japanese surrender and hoped they could influence Cho Man-Sik. Cho was at this time the most popular leader in Pyongyang due to his constant resistance to the Japanese and his formation of the Korean Products Promotion Society years earlier. High-ranking Soviet officers regularly met with Cho and tried to convince him to head the emerging North Korean administration. But Cho disagreed with communism and did not trust foreign powers. He agreed to cooperate with the Soviet authorities only on his own terms, such as extensive autonomy, but Cho's conditions were not accepted by the Soviet leadership. Despite his rejection of Soviet requests, he remained as chairman of the South Pyongan People's Committee. On November 3, 1945, Cho also established his own political party, the Democratic Party of Korea. At the beginning it was intended to turn into an authentic political organization of the nationalist right with the aim to bring about a democratic society, after Japanese occupation. The Soviets did not approve of the Democratic Party of Korea and under Soviet pressure, Choi Yong-kun was elected the first deputy chairman of the party. Choi was a guerrilla fighter who served in the 88th Brigade of the Soviet Union, and was a close friend of Kim Il-sung. The Soviets hoped that Cho Man-Sik could become a North Korean leader with Soviet ideals diminished, and new optimism was placed on the Korean communist and former guerrilla Kim Il-sung. Kim Il-sung had trained in the Soviet and Chinese Communist armies. The latter is Northeast Anti-Japanese United Army, a predecessor of today's Chinese People's Liberation Army. Rising to the rank of major. Under Soviet pressure, Cho was obliged to reorganize the Provisional People's Committee, and accept more communists onto the councils. The opposing ideologies of Kim and Cho led to a clash between them, and the forced power sharing did not sit well with either of them. The 1945 Moscow Conference between the Allied powers discussed the statehood of Korea, proposing a four-power trusteeship for 5 years, after which Korea would become a single, independent state. For Cho, this meant the result would be excessive foreign, and particularly communist, influence over his country, and refused to cooperate. On the 1st of January 1946, Andrei Alexeyevich Romanenko, a high-ranking Soviet leader, met with Cho and tried to persuade him to sign support of the trusteeship, but Cho refused to sign support. When the Soviets realized that they could not persuade Cho to endorse Soviet trusteeship, they lost all faith in him. They were also displeased by his Christian faith and his open protests against war crimes committed by the Soviet occupation forces. On January 5, 1946, Cho was arrested by Soviet soldiers and detained in Pyongyang's Koryo Hotel. He was kept under good conditions at the hotel, from where he continued to vocally oppose the communists. The Soviet civil administration discredited Cho by spreading rumors that he collaborated with the Japanese forces. He stood in the 1948 vice presidency election, but by then the communist influence in North Korea was too strong, and he was unsuccessful, receiving only 10 votes from the National Assembly. Cho was then transferred to a prison in Pyongyang, where all confirmed reports of him end. In June 1950, days before the North Korean invasion of South Korea, the northern and southern governments reached an agreement to exchange Cho and his son for jailed South Korean Workers' Party leaders Kim Sam-yong and Yoo Ha. But on June 24, both sides failed to reach an agreement on the method of exchange. On June 26, Kim and Yoo were executed in Seoul. Cho is generally believed to have been executed along with other political prisoners during the first months of the Korean War, potentially in October 1950. The North Korean defector Park Gi-leong claimed Cho was killed by the Korean People's Army in a massacre of 5,000 inmates during its evacuation of Pyongyang. Cho's removal ultimately opened the way for Kim Il-sung to reinforce power in the north, and ruled with absolute power until his death on July 8, 1994. In 1970, Cho's deeds gained posthumous recognition when South Korean government awarded him the Order of the Republic of Korea and the Order of Merit for National Foundation. The Taekwondo form Kodang was named in honor of Cho.